This is episode 49 of the Gauntlet Podcast. My name is Jason.
My name is Steve.
And I'm Rich.
Awesome. As always, let's begin by talking about the games that we've been playing. I think I'll go first if you guys don't mind.
Sure. Go for it.
I recently got a chance to run, I got a chance to run Dungeon World. What the fuck am I talking about? Of course. I ran more Dungeon World. I don't want to say much about it. I put together a dungeon using Vincent Baker's Lamentations supplement.
We've cured him.
Yes, indeed. Yes, you've cured me of my fancy boy debility.
Oh man, I'm kind of sad. I'm kind of glad.
I made this dungeon, or it's not really a dungeon. It's a location-based adventure using this Vincent Baker thing called the Seclusium of Orphone of the Three Visions. I'm not going to talk about that so much because I'm covering it on Discern Realities this week, but the session was good. There were lots of really high points for me. I got to play with Steve for the first time, finally, at Dungeon World, which was awesome. And I got to play with another new player, which was pretty cool. I got to play with David, my co-host on Discern Realities, who I haven't actually played proper, multiplayer Dungeon World game with in ages. So, I got to play with him. Really good stuff. The only thing I was not super happy about the session was I needed about one more hour. I had it scheduled for 5 hours, anticipating that I would need that much time to kind of get the fullness of this adventure that I had made, the Seclusium adventure. And it just we didn't quite hit it. I would have liked another hour so that certain aspects of the story would have had more time to breathe. There were things that the players were interested in that I didn't anticipate they were going to be so interested in. I just thought they were little one-off, diversion type things that nobody would care much about, but they were really interested in certain things. So I needed just a little more time to kind of let them explore some of that stuff while also kind of wrapping up the main, sort of adventure front that I had prepared. It was fun though. I probably could have dropped all of the approach to the dungeon, traveling to the dungeon thing that I do when I first run a session of Dungeon World for somebody. But I decided to keep it in because I kind of like giving the players a chance to interact with each other and kind of show us what their character's like outside of the pressure of the dungeon or the main adventure. But if I'd cut that, I would have had plenty of time in the Seclusium. But otherwise it was pretty good. That was the only thing. I would have liked just a little bit of extra time. What'd you think, Steve?
I have not played Dungeon World in close to 3 years, and again, never with you. And I had a lot of fun. So I'm not a fan of a lot of the traditional, D&D style fantasy elements. This had very few of them, which I appreciated. We were all human characters except for the, half ogre or something like that.
Yeah.
I ended up having a lot of fun and enjoyed using the flags and the way those encouraged interaction. I liked the mysteries we were presented with, the bizarre stuff that we encountered in the wizard's abode.
Right, yeah.
And the way you wanted an extra hour, I wanted an extra hour, 45 minutes, because I had an emergency and had to leave the game early. So I missed a lot of the resolution, just sort of.
Oh, yeah, we lost you for the last, you lost the resolution. But fortunately, one of the players put together a really beautiful typewritten summary of what happened at the end there for you. I thought that was really nice of him with pictures and everything.
Right. Thanks, Steven.
It was great. It was awesome. One thing that I wanted to touch on real quickly. I didn't want to dwell on this much, but there was this aspect of the dungeon that was this big giant thing that was in the wizard's Seclusium. It was this big glass cube. This is a parlor trick I've used in Dungeon World before, so this was not a brand new thing for this group. But basically, whenever the party finds this big glass cube, there's a person inside the cube, and the person is frightened and scared, and they don't know why they're there. They're trapped in this glass cube that has no apparent manner of entry. And whenever someone touches the cube, and someone in the party inevitably does, the person inside the cube is kind of pulled apart really rapidly in layers, kind of like a blender. They just get blended up and splatter all over the cube, right? And then their viscera and ground up bone just disappears. And then a few seconds later, a new person teleports into the cube, and they're frightened and scared and wondering what they're doing there, right? The cube just reaches out into the universe and grabs someone. Now, the party spent so much time trying to figure out how to disarm this cube so that it could no longer reach out into the universe and just grab poor victims, who are going to be in this death trap, right? And so what they settled on was they weakened the ground beneath the cube so that the cube would sink and be buried. That way they wouldn't have to touch the cube, but they would like be burying the cube. But the person inside the cube would have to just like stay there and die of malnutrition. But as long as their dead body is in the cube, like the cube's functionally inert because no one else can be teleported into it. If that wasn't grim enough, while they're doing this, the paladin character was like ministering to the person who they were burying, and trying to get them like to, like explain to them that like this is the best way. It's for the greater good. Like, and the gods will favor you and all that. So it was
really sad I missed
gruesome. Yeah, it was so gruesome and grim. And it was just one of those great moments. And I didn't see coming because to me it was just that cube is just a little like horror sideshow thing, but it ended up being like this really like grim, dark, gruesome thing that Sarah Doombringer Richardson would have been really proud of, I think. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about that for a minute. It was great. Lots of fun. Yeah. That's what I want to talk about.
And I gotta say that combined with listening to a lot of Discerned Realities lately has me kind of psyched to play Dungeon World. And,
I can't believe it. Do you hear that, Dan Lewis? Steve is excited to play Dungeon World.
But here's the thing. I mostly want to run Dungeon World so that I can, just bring the playbooks to the table and just spread out all the available stuff. And then when somebody's like, where's the bard? I'm like, no bard. Bards suck. You can't play a bard.
Sorry, no bards. I agree with you on that. The bard in Dungeon World blows.
Well, hey, why is there a line through this thing saying elf? I want to play. Oh, I'm sorry. There are no elves. The elves all died. They sucked.
That's a line too far, Steve. All right. Rich, what have you been playing? Or what do you want to talk about?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Monsterhearts, but not specifically Monsterhearts. So way back in my gaming days, when I was hitting the heavy bag running a lot of White Wolf stuff, I was just really into the idea of getting feedback from the group, right? And so you could always, we were college guys, we would all go out during smoke break and I would hang out and they would chat and all that good stuff. And that's how I could get feedback from listening to them talk to each other, just chatting a little bit. But the post-game feedback was always lacking, how was the game? It was good. It was good, Rich. It was good. All right, I'm going to head out, man. And so when I listened to the Jankcast do their AP, the Black Diamond AP, and some of the post-game chats that they had, I was just so freaking envious of those guys. I'm like, man, they really hit it. Like, they're actually talking about issues at the table and what was going on in their heads, and I loved it. I ate it up. Well, this Paramount group that I've talked about a few times before, playing Monsterhearts, a couple of them are in Europe and a couple in Colorado, and then me. And we do a post-game roses and thorns, what was a good thing, what was a bad thing. And sometimes that can lead to some fruitful discussion. But basically we got to the point where my character, she had been in Darkest Self for 2 sessions. And the short version is that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be in Darkest Self.
It was horrendous. Yeah. And so at the end of that second session, both of her foster parents had been killed. One because she asked the werewolf to do it, the other because she did it. And then she got out of Darkest Self. Well, we kind of hit a point of no return. Like, have we jumped the shark? And this was brought up by one of the other players. Andy really smartly brought up, hey, I'm worried about this. What's the next step? Where does this go? Where do we go from here? Have we spun out of control? And it was a really healthy discussion with all of the group. It wasn't just a worry session. It was like, how do we solve it? How do we fix it? The MC, Euron, he took it back, and then very next session, he kind of went back and set up a whole new normal. It was like a second season of a TV show where you're like, holy crap, how do they pull it back from the precipice here? It was fantastic, and I felt so elated that I also had the same, so it wasn't just Andy. Like, I had the exact same worry because when we started Monsterhearts, I'm like, if you start off, you do a classroom and you build your homeroom and you get all these relationships and everything's in school and lockdown, then the moment that you get out of class, everybody runs to the woods and they all have sex and kill people, and then the game just goes way off the rails at that point. And I'd already expressed that worry, and then I was the one who did it, right? I'm the one whose character killed parents. I'm like, dang it! See, it's an affection. But the fact that we pulled it back, that we were able to reset, And it was super creepy. Like, the new foster parents, the new normal for this character were just like, oh, super creepy. And it was great. I was so excited that this group can have an after-game discussion that is fruitful and not just a pat him on the back kind of thing.
Cool. Awesome. Man, we're having so much good Monsterhearts lately. Oh, geez. I loved the Saturday morning cartoons Monsterhearts. I actually wanted to talk about, I was going to talk about that maybe instead of Dungeon World, but I knew you were talking about Monsterhearts. So,
well,
I loved it.
It's over now, and I didn't get to play in that session.
Oh, yeah. You missed the last session. It's a bummer too, because it was, boy, it was really good. Maybe somebody will do it. Maybe Steven will do a typewritten summary for you too.
Oh, that would be nice.
So you can see what you missed. Steven, if you're listening. Other Steven. No, I love Monsterhearts. I think Monsterhearts is probably, I think it's gotta be like in my top 3 role-playing games at this point. Like, what do you think? I would have to agree, because only you can make your own top 3. No, I mean, like, just, like, how do you feel? Like, do you have such strong feelings about Monsterhearts like I do right now?
What's so funny about Monsterhearts is, like, there's so many of the mechanics that really drive me bonkers, and I feel like shouldn't work, but when you get it to the table, I end up having a good time. Almost every time, I end up having a great time playing.
No. It's like the bad boy of role-playing games, huh, Rich? You shouldn't like it. You shouldn't like it.
It's like the shaven-chested werewolf of RPGs for me.
I love it.
I've only played 2 sessions of Monsterhearts, one running, one playing, and they're each in my top 10 game sessions ever. They were tons of fun.
It's just so good.
Yeah.
Like, it just, I don't know what it is about it, but it always, it's just got this perfect, especially when you're hitting the strings and conditions the right way. The mechanics just lead to such good RP. It has a relatively small footprint as far as PBTA games go. There are other PBTA games that have added a lot to the proceedings, like Urban Shadows, which I love, has a lot of extra stuff on it. It's got lots of subsystems, and it's a great game, and it does what it's supposed to do. But Monsterhearts gets there in a real, like, quick, direct way. Like, it does it with, like, just the right amount of rules, and I love that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Steve, what'd you play?
So this week, I played Fiasco.
What? No, you said Imperial Assault. In the previous episode, you said you were going to talk about it. I need the Star Wars string to be unbroken.
Don't worry, I'll talk about that eventually.
Can I also just say, we've done this week Dungeon World, Monsterhearts, and now Fiasco. We should all just go fucking kill ourselves. How about that? That'd be great.
Just take a drink.
Let more interesting people run this show. That'd be awesome.
Well, you guys, it was either that, or I just talk about Dungeon World again, or I talk about a Star Wars game again.
That's fair. Go Fiasco.
I paid the ante. I'm expecting Imperial Assault, but I'll listen to your Fiasco.
I promise, talk about Imperial Assault. We'll be playing, we're playing it weekly for a while, so it'll come up. So, Fiasco, I had friends on my usual, like, Wednesday board game night request, hey, why don't we play that game you introduced us to? And so we had specific requests for Fiasco, which was really cool. And I pulled up Graham Walmsley's Unaussprechlichen Klutzen playset, which is supposed to be a
good one.
Lovecraftian themed Fiasco. And we ended up with a not terribly Lovecraftian session, but it ended up being very creepy and effective anyway. What I found interesting was that we had things wrapped up so nicely by the end of our regular scenes, by the end of Act 2, that we felt we didn't need the epilogue scenes, and we just...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, we just avoided them.
That's the best part of Fiasco.
I know, normally that's true, but by the end of Act 2, there were 3 player characters, right? One had gone insane, one had died, and one had gone insane and then died. And we felt that it was probably pretty hard to, build on that.
That's why you show the epilogue from the perspective of the insane asylum orderly and the leftover relatives of the dead one. I don't know. I'm kidding.
It felt like it was done, and lopping it off at the tail end felt appropriate, and it worked pretty well.
Is it supposed to be? Is that playset Unaussprechlichen Klutzen? Is it supposed to be Lovecraftian? I mean, right? I know it's like Lovecraftian, but it's like Gonzo Lovecraftian, right? It's not really straight Lovecraftian, is it? No,
I mean, it's Fiasco Lovecraftian, I think. Yeah.
I played it once, and ours was like super Gonzo. It had nothing to do with Lovecraft. It was just, I mean, it had like the tropes of Lovecraft, but like in this, like, just very Gonzo, like unserious, way, almost like making fun of it,
Ours was actually fairly serious, but not ultimately very Lovecraftian.
Awesome. Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No.
Let's go to the next segment. Our next segment is Giving Me Life. Steve, what's giving you life?
So what's giving me life this week is GM Self-Improvement. So I have been running I just wrapped up running a 5-session Star Wars World series. And it's the first series I've run in like 3 years since I was playing Apocalypse World. I sort of went in knowing that there would be things I wanted to work on and improve upon. So after every session, I've never heard anybody refer to it as, what was it, Roses and Thorns, Rich?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing that. Can everybody give me, something I can work on and something I liked? And I tried to work on things, and I think I ultimately realized what I really need to work on is working on things. In other words, I think I sort of need for any given session to sit down with like 3 things in mind to focus on, right? 2 or 3 things, and then just sort of hammer those home until it feels like I've got a better handle on things. But I think it's been super helpful, and I'm excited to play more and run more games and sort of take my skills out for a ride and try to work on things. So GM improvement is what is
I think
giving me life.
I always feel like the most important thing you can do as a GM when you are getting ready to prep, especially like a series of 4 or 5 sessions or whatever, is to think really critically about your setting. And when I say think critically, I mean think about like how it sounds, what it looks like, the sorts of people you're going to find, what sorts of cross currents of tension and danger are happening in the setting. Like just thinking about it like really almost holistically, right? And that's why my little 731 prep thing, it's not so much that like you end up with like a set of usable things. It's more about the exercise of engaging with the setting in a way that causes you to think really critically about what's happening, because I think that's the key to like GMing which is, it's not like I've prepped 100 things or even 10 things or 5 things or whatever. It's I've thought about this setting. I've lived in this setting enough to be able to respond in a way that comes across as legit, and real, not kind of like nothing feels out of place or wonky.
Yeah. It's a bit lived in before the players have lived in it for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. No, awesome. I was really happy to see that that it went well. I got, I was fully debriefed by all your players. So it was all good.
Okay.
It was all good marks, good reports. No, I'm kidding. Rich, what's giving you life?
Well, the giving me life, of course, doesn't have to be RPG related, and I'm totally taking advantage of that setup. I've already mentioned before that spring training baseball gives me life, so this is a slight angle on that. There's an app that you can have on your phone. It's the MLB at Bat app, and it's $20 if you get the audio version. You can listen to any game, and you can listen to all the spring training games. Well, it gives you pop-up notifications, and most of the spring training games are like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday through a Friday when I happen to be working. So for the last few weeks, I keep getting these little pop-ups like, so-and-so game's about to start pitching. It's so-and-so against so-and-so. I'm like, I really wish I could watch that game or listen to that game or something in that game. And I've had that in the back burner as work has come on. And over the weekend, I've been doing a lot of gaming, a lot of Monsterhearts, as you may know, and running some Legend of the Elements on Sundays. So a lot that always seems to be timed right when a lot of the other games are. So over the Easter weekends just concluded, I went back to Tennessee to visit some family. Wife and son in car, but both listening to their own devices. I was able to listen to quite a bit of like just mainline spring training games for hours. It was great.
Nice.
It was super great. Yeah. It's nice.
I will take your word for it.
It is. There's a pattern. There's a pattern to the style of a baseball game, an audio cast that's unlike any other event. I mean, if you understand what they're talking about in the very casual pace of a game, there's a certain beauty to it. There are a lot of stories that get shared, but of course it's all built on, it's kind of like a bunch of gamers sitting around talking. Like, if you don't know what game they're talking about, you're like, holy shit, you're so boring. Stop talking about your character. So it's one of those kind of conversations. But when it's lower stakes spring training games where, they aren't trying to amp up the excitement, it really is just talking about development of players. And it's fascinating to me, but probably just me. Maybe Ray Otis. Maybe Ray.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, thanks.
Yeah, all right. The thing give me life this week is my Carcosa playlist. So Carcosa is a thing I do. This is the third annual series of Carcosa in the Gauntlet, and it's always fun. It's my favorite thing to do every year. Like, I love my Carcosa sessions. I just have a blast with it. It's a chance for me to sort of unleash my gamer id or something. I don't know. Like, I just let it all hang out in Carcosa, right? And there's no restrictions, no restraints. Like, I've even put like a mature label on this, on the meetup for these. I dig it. And, I know the players love it. Like, people still like not routinely, but every now and then someone's always like, oh man, I was thinking about Carcosa the other day. Like, it was so fun. And so I love that. But something I did last year was I put together my synthwave playlist for Carcosa. And now that Carcosa is coming up again here in a couple weeks, I am revisiting the playlist and adding to it. And, I just love it. I don't know, like, I'm getting myself pumped up for Carcosa, and I love synthwave. So that's it.
Is that pretty much what your playlist is?
Well, so the Carcosa playlist, yeah, is all synthwave. Like, because my vision of Carcosa is not the, like, the gross, like, violent, ritualistic aspect of the Lamentations Carcosa. It's more the weird fantasy or science fantasy weirdness, like, of, like, maybe, like, like 60s or 70s sci-fi, that kind of thing. Like,
okay.
or like genre film of the 80s. Like, and so the synthwave really, like, it really, like, informs, like, how I think about the setting a lot. Like, as I'm listening to the songs, even, like, I'm thinking of, like, muscular barbarian he-men, riding on the backs of dinosaurs equipped with laser eye beams, right? Like, as I'm listening to this music, and it just gets me so fucking excited. And so I'm putting that in the game, right? Like, it's that kind of thing. So,
do you play any of the music during the game?
No, I don't. No, I've thought about that once, like, but I'm not one of those guys, like, who does music in games. Like, that's not my thing. I'm actually kind of one of those people who doesn't appreciate that at the table. I know some people really get into that. I'm not one of those people. I find it more distracting than anything. But that said, I encourage all my players to go listen to my playlist once I'll post it up. Another thing about these Carcosa sessions that are coming up that I'm really, really pumped about is it's this kind of like the newer Wednesday crew. So the Wednesday crew that I kind of have right now, the current formation of them, it's always pretty good. But this current formulation of the Wednesday crew I really like these guys a lot. They're so cool. They're such cool players, and I'm having such a good time getting to know them and playing with them. And so I'm really pumped that a lot of them are coming along for the Carcosa ride too. That's it. And so let's go to the main segment.
All right, listeners, put on your robes, grab your holy text, and speak the sacred words, because today we're talking about ritual in games.
Best intro.
Yeah. What the fuck was that? Okay, well, that's a good start. What are we talking about, Steve?
All right. Ritual. Definitions cover pretty wide ground, but more or less we're talking about a rite or act performed in a certain way. And that ideally commands respect and conveys meaning to those in the know. In other words, we're not talking about wizards and spellcasting. So the first two games that got me really interested in talking about this were Polaris and Society of Dreamers. So Polaris and Thou Art But a Warrior, speaking of recent guest Anna Kreider.
I don't know that one. I only know Thou Art But a Werewolf, but...
Right. So Polaris has ritual phrases. A lot of the mechanics are ritual phrases, in fact. And they're worded in a very, serious fairy tale manner. Whenever there's a conflict invoked, or when the scene ends, game ends, etc., you have to speak this, very flowery, very solemnly worded phrase, right? And you're forced to take it seriously, and you're forced to sort of confront the tone of the game over and over and over again. It allows that to be perpetuated in a game where otherwise that tone would easily fall apart, I think. And Polaris also pairs the beginning and end phrases with you light a candle to signal the beginning of the game, and you extinguish the candle to signal the end of it.
Right.
It's marred somewhat when, like I did, you're presented with an LED candle, and you forget this fact and try to light it. But yeah, this was not my house. It was a friend's candle. It kind of lit, so I was like, "Oh, okay, this is working." And somebody looks over.
We're just like melting plastic. Like,
no, I mean it's made of wax. There's just an LED component in the bottom / center, right? I'm not completely stupid. I'm just mostly stupid. It's one of the most ritually laden games that I'm aware of, and it has this very serious atmosphere to it. And I think it works really well.
Yeah, I've never played Polaris, but I hear or the Arbiter Warrior, but I hear that about them, like that in the way the Society of Dreamers does, which I think you're probably going to talk about, that procedure that you engage in almost like, well, it invokes in a way, right? Like a ritual. It invokes a certain mindset at the table, a certain mood. And I think when done well, it can be very powerful, right? I mean, there are games that there are more and more games coming out that are kind of acknowledging this, and it's kind of fun to see.
Yeah. I mean, because without reinforcing that serious tone, you're playing a game of ice elves at the North Pole,
ice elves,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
little ice elves trying to save their little ice elf land. Yeah.
Exactly. So next up, Rich, have you played Society of Dreamers?
I have not. I ordered it because you guys have spoken so highly of it. Then I realized there's probably no way I could play it over Hangouts, so I'm basically hosed.
It's not great over Hangouts, I'll tell you that. We had fun when we did it, but it was, it misses it. Well, part of the reason why it's not great is because it's missing some of the ritual element over Hangouts. So that's good. There's your segue.
Because there's no way you can do rituals over Hangouts.
Well, it's not the same. I mean, I don't think it's the same. I think the Society of Dreamers style of ritual is maybe not it's not easy to get the same effect, and if when you're not all sitting around the table, as if you were at a seance, like it's just very different. So.
Sure, I agree.
And well, okay, Society of Dreamers has a couple of rituals to start the game off. The first one, probably my favorite one, is you go around the room you're in, and maybe this is one that doesn't play great across Hangouts. You go around the room you're in, all of you. And you start making loud noises and trying to chase the bad spirits away from I think especially away from the corners. That's where bad spirits go.
Right. Yes, that's what I had.
And it's this is my favorite ritual of all the ones we're going to talk about, I think. So I'm probably blowing my wad a little early. But you get so much out of this ridiculous thing. And I think that part of that is that it signals that, okay, now is the time for being serious, because Society of Dreamers is, again, a very, somber and sober game. Also built into that is a sort of LARPy element, because I think that you're basically doing something that this seems like something that they would have done, pre-seance or something, right? This seems like something that the characters you're playing would have engaged in.
Yeah, because in that game you also do like these visualization exercises.
Right.
You have a Ouija board thing at the table that you're moving around the planchette. That sort of like that, we call it like kind of a semi-LARP aspect of the game. It's really it's just more ritual that helps enforce like the tone. This game is the high watermark of that, right? I mean, it's the biggest, brightest example of it, I think.
I think this one bridges the gap between pre-game and, actual game very nicely, because it signals that the game's starting, right? But the thing you're doing sort of makes sense in the fiction, right? But is so fundamentally silly and ridiculous that, of course, everyone's going around the room and clapping and making noises and laughing.
Right.
But it lets you sort of get the sillies out. I wish I had a better phrase for that. But it's, you exercise your impulse to be silly by doing something incredibly silly. And it's the ritual element of you're doing it together, and so you're bringing your group together. I think that's very powerful, because you sit down and you read what the game wants you to do, and you're like, well, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. Like when you're reading the rules to Society of Dreamers, it's so easy to be like cynical, and look at it and be like, oh God, really? Like, am I really gonna have to stand up and go yell in the corner of the room? Am I really like, it just seems so hokey. But to the game's credit, like, and it's very insistent that you do all these things, right? Like, it's like really, really emphasizes like the importance of them. If you do them, it gets you in the right headspace. Like, it's really successful. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So another one is Burning Wheel, and thanks to community member Avi for pointing this one out. So I should say Burning Wheel and related games. I know this pops up in Mouse Guard as well, but I'm not sure about like Burning Empires or Torchbearer.
I think it's an element of all of them. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
So whenever you are, whenever you as one player are helping another player, just mechanically you're contributing a die to their roll, right? You physically take one of your dice and you mingle it with theirs. You hand them your die, and they will then roll your die along with their own, which is, I don't even know why that one affects me, but it seems to work so nicely.
Well, the funny thing about that is it's pure ritual, because the fact that you're using someone else's die, it has no mechanical bearing on anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, it's just a different colored die that represents the other person's like contribution or non-contribution, I guess. There's no mechanical like, oh, if that die rolls something different than this, then, if this die does this, then this happens. There's nothing like that. It's pure ritual. It's like, it's just to have this moment at the table where you say, I am helping you and I am receiving your help, so it's kind of interesting in that way. Yeah. But.
And there's also a bit of taboo breaking, at least with some players who are paranoid about, other people touching their dice.
Oh God.
I'm not saying that's a lot of us. I'm saying that element's kind of fun.
If you're one of those people, I mean, really, you need to evaluate your life choices. Throwing that out there. So
to get back to it, one of the things I find interesting, because I do this same thing in Lady Blackbird. When someone offers a helping die, I have them give a die from their pool, and often the dice look different. So it's interesting in working out the narration, because you go, oh, well, you actually didn't do jack crap for me, because here's your die, and it didn't give me a success.
Yeah, that's fun.
I might be wrong. Is that the case in Burning Wheel too? Are you supposed to like account for the die that didn't work or it did work? I don't think you do.
I don't think so.
I don't think it matters.
It's a nice touch, though.
Yeah. Might as well, right?
Yeah. It's easy. It's easy enough to bring in. There's one on here called Beast Hunters. Rich, was that you?
Yeah, Christian Giffen made this game a while back. It is a 1v1 game where
I'm sorry?
It is a one player, one GM.
Oh, I thought you said 1D1.
Oh, yeah, so do I.
V is in vampire.
Oh, V. Got it. Okay. I thought you said 1D1. I'm like, what is that? Is this Dungeon Crawl Classics?
You just roll a ball.
Oh my gosh. No, it's a one GM, one player game where the player goes out and hunts monsters in this kind of pseudo prehistoric giant monster tribal setting. And when you defeat the monsters, you take them on as parts of their essence as tattoos, so that's kind of how you level up. But it's very ritualistic in that when you start the game, because the GM has a budget, right? The GM's out to get you in this game. It is very competitive. And so the GM has a budget that they can use against you. And when you start off the game, you shake hands across the table. And whenever you have to go out, you have to go on a bio break or whatever, you have to shake out, right? You have to shake each other's hands to awesome. Basically break out of the competition. It's a delightfully cool little game. I played it over Hangouts because I only knew one person who wanted to play who happened to not be near me. But, it was really great. We actually used, because in Beast Hunters, you state what you want to do, but then you roll dice and you're actually kind of tanking down someone. So imagine a lot of hit points to the big monster, right? So you state this horribly over-the-top thing that you do to the monster, and then you roll and you're like, oh yeah, I actually took like 3 hit points off of them. Crap. But the shake-in, shake-out ritual was something we kind of represented over Hangouts, and it was a great part of the ritual.
Yeah, you like mimed it
yes,
for the...
We did.
Okay, good.
We were very serious.
I love that because that even takes into account breaks. Like in most of these games that have a beginning and end of session ritual, doesn't account for breaks. When you go to the bathroom, you're still a dreamer in early 18th century Europe or whatever. And this, I like that this accounts for that. No,
yes.
Game is temporarily suspended. Shake. Come back. Hope you washed your hands. Shake. All right.
Oh, yeah, I know. Ooh, now it's a gross ritual. You gotta have hand sand at the table. Oh, boy.
Well, my opponent, I happen to have not washed my hand. Are you going to touch your dice now?
Oh, no.
That's a great reason for people not to touch your dice. Okay, I'll get behind that. I'll get behind that.
All right. Surprise, surprise. We will be talking about Apocalypse World and various and sundry hacks. One thing that Apocalypse World does is it requires even the MC to refer to all the players as their character's name.
Right, yeah.
I really like that because every time you go to the players, every time you refer to them, you're reinforcing the fiction. And with as fiction first as Apocalypse World and Co. are, you don't pick up those dice to roll a move until you've narrated how that move comes into play, how you trigger it, right? And so the fiction first nature of even just addressing the other players fits together so nicely, I think.
It's such a simple thing, but there's something about maintaining it and treating it with a certain degree of sanctity and again, being really respectful of it, of like referring to the other players not as their real name, but as their character's name. It's very, very powerful. It's so simple, but very powerful. And I'll tell you what, when someone's not doing it, it bugs the shit out of me. It bugs the shit out of me. Like when someone at the table keeps referring to a character by the player's name, I know they don't mean anything ill by doing it, but it's so jarring, because
it just feels wrong.
It feels wrong, yeah, and because it's a simple thing, but it's incredibly powerful to once the game starts to just refer to the players by their character's name, it's super effective. I mean, little things go a long way toward creating like shared imaginary space, and that's a really great, powerful one. And that's the sort of thing that, frankly, you should be doing in every game. There's no reason why you can't incorporate that in every game, right?
Yeah, it's so easy.
So easy. And again, going back to this idea that these are things that have a certain like privileged place or solemnity with which you approach them, it feels really jarring when someone doesn't do it, every now and then it happens, right? But like when they're just consistently calling the player their player's name, it's like, oh God. But anyway, because they're really breaking the social contract of the game, right? Like they really are, truly, But.
It's like when you and everybody else show up to the sacrifice and you're wearing your robes and you've got your ritualistic sacrifice dagger, and then Roy shows up in jeans. Thanks, Roy.
Right, exactly. God damn it, Roy.
One of the things, just as a hangout etiquette, gaming over hangout, I really prefer for people to use the Hangout toolbox so that you can actually see the character's name. I think is really helpful. Just a thought to kind of hand out there. And flip mode of you always using the character name during particularly intense games that I've run, or moments where I get a sense off of a player I need to check in with them. The fact that I always use their character name, when I use their actual name to check in, it's a really great way to kind of quick break. Like, hey, Bob, are you cool? And they know, oh, wow, Rich just said my name. Okay, let's that's real world stuff. And it's really helpful. Like, it's great to kind of reverse it out and immediately check in, because you've used it so much. You've got that ritual that when you break from the ritual, it means something.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So finally, I wanted to talk about Archipelago. Archipelago is one of those games I've managed somehow to not play, which is a personal failing on my part, because I'll open up that PDF, or I've got it printed out, look at the printouts, and I'm just scrolling through, and I'm like, why have I not played this? I just want to take those ritual phrases in Archipelago and insert them into everything.
It's a good move. I mean, we're talking about Archipelago III, we should probably say, which is somewhat different from the others.
It has these ritual phrases that you can say at any time, if I'm not mistaken, and that, have specific effects, and they call for specific things whenever you mention them. And a number of them explicitly allow and empower players to request different or more detailed fiction, or to inject smaller color scenes or just interpersonal scenes.
Yeah, the power of the ritual, those phrases in Archipelago, what makes them so great to me is they are an acknowledgement that we're all here to craft the best, most coherent story we can come up with, right? As a group together. And the phrases are you treat them with a very high level of respect, such that if I say, try another way, you must try another way. If I say, try harder, go harder, you must go stronger and deeper with what you just said. You can't go with some weak shit. If I say help, it means I really need your help right now to help me make this happen, to fill this scene out, to do the thing that I want, to make it good. And I think that's the power of those phrases, because they are an acknowledgement of what you're all there to do together, which is craft a solid, coherent story. And they are these sacred tools by which you can do it, right? So to make sure that everyone's happy with what's going on, that everyone feels that that there's nothing out of place, basically, right? The game has other aspects to it that do that as well, that help reinforce this cohesion in the story. Super powerful. And yeah, you're right. You can absolutely incorporate them into any game. It's something that I think I should probably I should more aggressively do in my own games. For a while, we were doing it face-to-face gaming in Houston. We were kind of incorporating them a lot. But if you don't practice, you get, things get dull.
Yeah, that's right. I think I remember try another way coming up once or twice.
Yeah. I think, we would do it kind of jokingly, try another way. But I think there's something to be said about having a conversation at the top of any session and saying, we're going to use these phrases to mandate certain behaviors.
Right.
Archipelago's awesome. Love that game.
There are tons of games that incorporate rituals successfully. I'd love to hear more about these in the comments once we post the episode, actually. Because it's a way for me to, seek out games that do interesting things. So I'd love to hear more about them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about incorporating rituals into games that don't have them? And I think taking those archipelago phrases and just acknowledging at the start of the session, we're going to be using these, that's an excellent way to do it.
I think the start of game ritual and this sort of ending the game ritual is something that's really easy to do and would create would kind of help create a certain level of seriousness, especially if you're going for a certain tone, right?
Yeah.
I think it's always important to have the tone discussion, but sometimes, you see in games like Society of Dreamers and games like Polaris that it can be much more effectively and powerfully done if you have a procedure that we all kind of acknowledge at the table that helps, enforce the tone. And I think the start of game rituals are a great way of doing that. And also the rituals, just that are part of the game that allow you to maintain the tone. I think those are all things that the start of game ritual and end of game ritual is a particularly easy thing to do because it's at the start and the end. So it's not going to require you to fiddle with your game too much, But I think those are pretty straightforward.
I think the start of game ritual is, again, another way to explicitly empower people to say, okay, it's time to stop, chit-chatting and dilly-dallying and other semi-rhyming phrases and get the game started. I like you guys, but we came here to game. We only have a limited time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah.
I like the break time ritual that Rich, you brought up with, I don't want to say Beast Wars. That's not right. Beast Hunters. There we go. When we were playing Dungeon World Sunday, there was a good 30 minutes where I didn't want to, we were in too interesting. Our territory was.
You didn't have you didn't have an escape hatch to go to the bathroom. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. We were too involved, and I was about to just burst. And
Well, I'm glad that it was so interesting that you didn't want to even go to the bathroom. That's great. That makes me think you're having a good time.
And it was one of those things where it's well, okay, after we finish, what we're doing with Steven, it'll be fine. I can. Oh no, I want in on this one too. And it just kept coming up. We had a ritual. This would be perfectly fine.
That's what we need, a ritual. We don't need to just say, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. But yeah. Let's just ritualize all social behavior at the game table. I think that's what we should do.
Right. Well, I think one way that an acknowledged ritual can function is by operating silently.
Oh.
So yeah, because I didn't want to break in and break the flow of fiction, right?
Yeah, okay. I can kind of see that.
I think if I could have signaled that in a silent way where I could have gotten, acknowledgement from people that, okay, in 5 minutes or whatever, we'll take a break without breaking up the flow, it would have been really, really handy. I respect rituals that operate on that the sort of silent level, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So we need an X card, we need an O card, and we need a yellow card. Right?
Wow. Okay.
Okay, you're joking. I'm thinking about that now. I've got yellow note cards. I can make that work.
A little bio break card? It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea, actually. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good idea.
That's one of the things I'm thankful for in Hangouts. So we have the little text window, somebody pop up, hey, can we take a bio break soon?
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
Awesome. And
normally that's doable. We were using like Roll20 and Dice Stream. Chat was intermittently checked, I guess, but not necessarily. I couldn't rely on it, right?
I had a lot of ritual when I ran my Vampire the Masquerade game, and one of the rituals for tone was, if you said it existed within the world. And there was a hat. There was a hat in the middle of the table called the out of character hat. Had a little, like the press hat where it says press, it says OOC on a little index card stuck right in the bill. And it evolved from like people grabbing the hat to make some kind of side joke, and we accept that, right? And if you grab for the hat too many times, you get the, come on, seriously, dude. And then eventually it evolved into the point of people mimicking putting their hand up to their head as if they were putting on the out of character hat. I have friends that it's been a long time since that game, and they still do the out of character gesture whenever they're making a side joke.
I played briefly with one group whose house rule was you put your hand like your fingers out, and you put it up to your head, like thumb right against your forehead, and that is your out of character indicator. Hey guys, I'm saying something out of character.
Yeah. When I did LARPs at Dreamation, I learned that was a thing that you do. Like they would like ball their fist and put it up by their forehead, and that indicated this is a thing happening out of game. Like this is a out of character, out of game thing. But it was effective though. It was super, super effective because you can't help but notice it. You're like, why are they making that dumb gesture on their head, right? And then you're like, oh, it's because they're
and also
they're out of character right
because
now,
because it's dumb. You probably are going to end up doing it less often.
Yeah. I thought of that.
It was an ugly hat.
So, Rich, I really want to talk about the next one, the post-game ritual.
Oh, yeah. Post-game ritual, I think it's super necessary because a lot of gamers kind of in, you're out. We play a lot of very emotional content games, and I think that LARP is doing a fantastic job in helping people have those after chats, but especially with Hangout games, it's not always something that you have, right? You've already been online for a significant amount of time. And, you're going to sit around and spend another half hour de-stressing. I think you should. I think that some rituals around that would be really helpful. Do you guys know of any, are there any things you specifically do?
I don't, and I in both cases, I don't know anything and I don't do anything. I wish we did though, and you're right, because I've been saying this a lot lately. One of the things that I'm really, really missing, I said it last week when I talked about Super Friends, one of the things I'm missing in my gaming life right now, because it's so Hangouts focused, is that post-game talk, and I won't do it if there's not something that like forces me to do it. So like when you're playing face to face, it's easy because we're all standing around, the game is over, and you just talk naturally. But in a Hangouts game, It's too easy to just say, all right, well, that was loads of fun. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Awesome. We're done. And, and that's, it's easy to do, right? And I think you're right, Rich. If there was some kind of like formal accepted process by which you trigger post-game discussion, maybe even like a list of like questions or something, or, the roses and thorns thing, just, there needs to be something for Hangouts games, especially. There needs to be something because I feel like, at least in our games, we're not getting enough of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Roses and thorns is a good step, but I don't feel like it's the ultimate. I really feel like there's some other aftercare.
Yeah, like an aftercare thing. Something that really bothers me, just because I'm so focused on like community building and like making people excited to play games and drawing out the best out of them. Like that's what I love about that what we do in the Gauntlet. Something that bothers me when we're playing is I feel like people's really cool contributions to the story or to the gameplay they go often unacknowledged, right? Like there's not like a time when we get to acknowledge them. And I think a post-game process would really help that. Like, because there are times when somebody does a really cool thing and I make a note of like, oh man, I want to tell them how cool that was. And maybe I'll remember, to do it afterwards, but often I won't. And I think it'd be cool to have like a, wrapped up with that with the idea of the post game talk, like this like attaboy, or like, hey, I really liked when you did this. I thought this was really cool. I just wanted to commend you on that. That a lot of that goes back to this like notion, which I find increasingly oppressive, this notion of, well, there's no such thing as a good role player, right? There's no such thing as good role playing, right? I increasingly find that to be somewhat oppressive, because I think we should be able to celebrate when people do cool things. So
I like the post game. That thing you did was awesome. We did a bit of that after the last Star Wars World game. I need an excuse to talk about a Star Wars game.
Yes, bingo, I got it.
We did do that, a bit of that, but I also sort of like the idea going back to a silent mid-game ritual. Like, somebody does something awesome, you don't want to break the flow of things, you don't want to speak up and say that was great, except occasionally you do, because sometimes it is really awesome. But anyway, if you had an explicit silent ritual that is sort of the way like fan mail works in Primetime Adventures.
Oh, thank you. I was so going there. Thank you.
Except that does have mechanics that go along with it, but it's probably easy enough to just have, a set of tokens out in the center of the table or something like that you can pick from a bowl and you hand to somebody, and it doesn't mechanically mean anything, but it's an encouragement to keep doing the thing you just did. Keep doing awesome stuff. I think
we need more of that.
We
need more of that. And I think for the GMs too, like, and maybe this is just my bias speaking as a GM, I don't know, or because I mostly GM, but like, I feel like sometimes, I'm not even kidding, like sometimes, especially when you're running Powered by the Apocalypse games, it kind of I feel like the GM's role is minimized a lot, because in Apocalypse World games, the players are truly, it is a player facing game. The players truly are like driving the story, not so much in Dungeon World, but definitely like in like Monsterhearts and some of the other ones. The players are like driving the story, and they're doing all the cool stuff, and it's awesome and it's appropriate. But the GM is playing a really important role there too. It's a more subtle role, but it's about pacing. It's a role about like knowing when to cut scenes. It's knowing when to pass on control of framing scenes and when to frame them yourself. Like, there's a whole thing going on, and I think sometimes that in this like new era of like player facing games, I think the GM doesn't like, it's not like the trad game, I don't want like the trad games where it's like, oh God, it's all about the GM's prep and what they did. But like, I do think there needs to be, just at the table, like around the table in general, there needs to be some sort of like system of like acknowledging when people are doing cool things that are helping things. And because it encourages you to do better. It encourages you to try harder, right? It encourages you to like to think about how you're playing and think about how you're running the game and to want to do more exciting things. I just think it's good for developing skill and no, yeah, you're totally right.
I mean, even Primetime Adventures, which does have fan mail baked into the mechanics, you can't give fan mail to the GM when they do something cool.
Right. Yeah. See, that's kind of like, like as somebody who mostly GMs, it's like, hey, like, I mean,
you got a whole day, Jason. Come on, man.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Rich did send me a PDF finally, listeners, for GM's Day, just so you know, or a credit. So. The other 100 of you, though, I haven't received anything. So
don't feel bad, listeners. Really, the PDF was just I did a Word document of like, get off my back, man, and then I PDF that up.
You should know, Rich, I spent it on a $10 OSR product about dick monsters. So
great. It's awesome.
Just dick monsters. That's all it was. All right. But yeah, it was good. Is there anything else we're going to talk about this, or anything else we want to cover?
No, I don't think so.
All right, cool. Awesome. Rituals and games. Oh, that's our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you should go to Google Plus and search for The Gauntlet in the community section of Google Plus. You will find us there. You can also find us on Twitter at Gauntlet RPG. My Twitter posting rate is up to about 3 per week now, so I'm feeling good about that. Blazing.
Wow.
It's so good. We have a meetup called Gauntlet Hangouts where we organize our online games. You can find a link to that in our G Plus community. And finally, if you would give us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Steve.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Jason.
And thank you, listeners.
Fuck it. Fuck.
I just think I think there's room for it, and I'm waiting for someone to do it right.
Don't stinger me saying fuck, but.
I won't. Please don't. I won't do anything.
Okay, look, for clarification, can I stinger you saying don't stinger me saying fuck?
Shut up. Don't even know. I don't want to start that.
Or can you stinger that?
Right. Can I stinger me?
It's like Inception.
Asking for it. I think.
Now, you guys are like, is the top still spinning? That's what I need to know, because we've entered some kind of loop of is it real or is it not real?